Hello, welcome to my podcast. So this is episode 1 of my of my podcast, the beginning of my social work journey. I feel that I recently done sociology in my first year, and I found it to be the most interesting topic, the most interesting subject, especially socialization. And so this is why I'm going to take this right back to the start to kind of show where I've come from and perhaps why it has led me to my social work degree. So I grew up in a predominantly single parent household. The environment that I was in, I was also very close with my grandparents as well. And the environment that I was in was quite toxic. There was domestic violence, substance abuse. It was just, it was chaos. Like when I think about it now, it was so chaotic. And I remember myself as a child, I was, probably the fact that I was a child, I just remember my innocence, my empathy, my just such a gentle soul in such a chaotic world. You know, I did not understand mental health, obviously, as a young child, but I know that the women in my family who were predominantly the biggest influences in my life, like my mother and my grandmother, who have and had struggled with substance abuse and also mental health issues. And it's only until recently that I kind of understand it on a different level, because I'm understanding how migrating to a different country affects people, which is something that I never really thought about before. But now, since starting my degree basically, and also having the opportunity to travel to India, I can now see Australian culture in a very different limelight. And I understand, like, for them, back in those days, even now, that it would have just it was an extremely hard thing to go through to try to be accepted into this culture, into this society. And I think I really, noticed and felt this when I was a child growing up, because I was neither a white Australian nor was I Indigenous. So I never felt that I really belonged in any kind of space. There wasn't, I don't know. And at the same time, I think that I was beginning to realize that I was different from a lot of people. I had also realized my sexuality, which was, I think I worked out that I liked girls around the age of like 7. And so I think being a young black girl, I did not feel fully accepted. I couldn't find my place. There was no sense of belonging. And even more so then when I realized my sexuality, because I did not see anyone who looked like me. I did not see any queer people, any lesbians, nothing. I was in the church at the same time. Church is telling me, nope, that's not a good thing. And my God, my goodness, I grew up thinking that I literally had to be a male in order to like girls. And I thought that for quite some time, because the only people that I seen dating females or loving females was men. So, if it was 2024 and I was a child, if back then, and I said, you know what, I wanted to be a boy, let me go through a sex change. If it was 2024 back then maybe people would have allowed me to have a sex change, because that's where my thinking was at. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I love being a woman. I love my womanly female body. Not having this sense of belonging, it did affect my mental health as a child. Like, I Yeah. And I was very secretive about that because I also had younger siblings, and like within my home, it was like I also didn't really have a sense of belonging there. So not only within like my um not only within my family, but also within like that first social layer of like school, I didn't really have a sense of belonging either. So I never really felt like I belonged anywhere. So I guess when I once finally got to high school, I belonged to everyone. I belonged to every group. Like I got along with everyone. I knew how to uh, mingle and be friends and accept different, diverse people, and I loved that. I loved like not ever feeling like, I was in a popular group and I was also friends with the people who weren't very popular. Bullying was like a massive thing for me. I didn't experience bullying too much, but it whenever I seen other people being bullied, like it just that was not on. That was not okay for me. And I know that from a very young age, like when I was a child, I had from about the age of 7. I remember I wanted to be as rich as Oprah because I wanted to have as much money as her to buy a plane, put a whole bunch of coloring in books, footballs and stuff on there, on the plane, and fly to Africa so then they could have the things. I drove my mum crazy, begging her to sponsor a child. Social justice, I think, from a very, very young age, because of the injustices that I had experienced as a child and the disconnect and the othering, I think has definitely played a major part in me going into social work now. Once I finished school, everyone was moving to the big cities. It was like leave this small town, move to the big cities. So I moved to the big cities, and I'm surprised I didn't die while I was there. I just it was reckless. It was too much for me. It was like I don't know. It's like just like a shot of dopamine, a massive shot of dopamine, or like adrenaline or something. Like it was, yeah, it was way too much for me. And then, so I tried that. I tried multiple times, tried to move to Brisbane, tried to move to Melbourne, and then I ended up moving back home, back to Cairns, and then that's when I then decided to go remote. Like I wanted to do remote living. So I spent about 8 years, the last 8 years of my 20s basically living in remote Australia. I did spend a couple of years in Cairns, like working and whatnot. But then I moved, I went remote, and I would go for a couple of years and then I'd come back because like when you're living in that remote environment, it's great, but then it gets to a certain point, and I found it to be like a year and a half mark, then you start feeling like you really start to feel that isolation. So then I'd move back home and I'd be like, no, I don't like it. Go back to remote living. And it was like this constant push and pull for about 8 years. I really enjoyed that remote living. In outback Australia, it was quiet, it was peaceful, didn't need to worry about what was going on in society, and then I'd come back, have fun, enjoy society again, and it would then I'd be like, no, this is too much, I've had enough. Send me back to the quiet, to the peace and quiet. So then I'd go back again. And it was nice. I loved that space and time because when you're sitting in silence, when you have that time of solitude, I just feel like there was a lot that I was able to work on myself. Like I did a lot of like healing. There was a lot of healing that took place in that space and time. And I feel like each time I came back into society, I was a little wiser, a little stronger. And then I just kept going back and forth. And I'd always, I had people who had told me that social work would be good for me, that I should do social work. And I don't know, it's like I didn't fully hear it. I was too in my stuff to be able to fully hear that. And the end of 2022, like I had multiple relationships throughout my 20s. And they are some of my favorite relationships because I was able to learn so much about myself. Like, I know my sisters and my family are like, oh my gosh, like, you need to stop dating. You need to stop getting into relationships. But it honestly, when you are in relationships, it really reflects. It really reflects yourself. And those parts of you that, maybe need a bit of work. It reflects the good parts and it reflects the not so good parts and it reflects all the things in between. So that is why I really value the relationships that I've had. And when I end of 2022, that was the last relationship that I had. And it was, I thought that it was this beautiful relationship. And it was like my dream come true. Like everything from when I was a child, to be with a woman who wanted to have kids, have a family, get married, buy a house. Like this dream, the dream that they sell you, the traditional life, which I had formed from a very young age, thinking that was the normal, that is what I needed to have in order to have a fulfilling, great, happy life. And I thought I had met someone that I could really have this with. And not only that, she was also a woman of color. So that was like a huge thing for me, because I only ever had dated white women. And so to date a woman of color, I was like, perfect. This is the goal. This is the good one. And I was so blindsided by this fantasy that I was not able to see the toxicity of it and the narcissism and the gaslighting. When I think about it now, I'm like, whoa. What land were you living in, Maita? And and then all of a sudden it like ended. It ended. And I had the biggest mental breakdown. For about 2 weeks, I just could not pull it together. I was in bed, just crying. I was like disassociating, heavily disassociating. Oh my God, I'm getting emotional thinking about it now. Heavily disassociating, and at the same time, I was being forced to go to work because not only was I in this toxic relationship with someone, I also was in like this incredibly toxic relationship with my work and with my boss as well. Oh my God. Thinking about it now, when I'm talking about it like this, I'm like, wow, I did not, like, the level of toxicity that I just was not able to fully comprehend or like see. And yeah, it was not losing this person that sent me into this massive breakdown, but it was the dream, it was the dream, the idea of the life that I had wanted. I felt like that had left, it had broken, or it was like, I don't even, it was the idea of, I think I realized that it was not working, that way of life, that way of thinking, what I was wanting was not really what aligned with me. Like it was not like my truth. And then I had met someone who I was going to be coming back home, had met someone online, and she was like, I'm non-monogamous, don't want children, and yeah. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, look at these decisions that you can make for yourself. Like, whatever is going to, you don't need to live by these norms. You don't need to live by what society says you need to do. Like, you can build your own life and make your own decisions and do whatever you want. A traditional life doesn't necessarily mean a good life. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is a life that is suited for you. So after I had this mental breakdown in these 2 weeks, honestly, that it was literally the worst 2 weeks of my life. Something shifted, and it then became, I was like, I just knew I needed to do something different. Like, I needed to change my life. And I was like, I put in so much time, I put in so much energy, and all these great parts of myself I give to this job, to this business. And it's like, this does not align with me. And do you know what? I actually had a therapy. I started doing therapy for the first time in my life. And one of the biggest things, my biggest takeaways from that I had not done in the 29 years of life that I had lived, was I was not clear on my boundaries. I was not clear on my values. And once I reflected and looked at, where are my boundaries? What are my values? Once I got clear on that, I was able to kind of plan, create some kind of blueprint, or I don't know, something for my life. And I was like, okay, these parts of myself, these good parts of myself that I'm giving away to this job is not fulfilling. It's not enough for me. So I was like, I really want to work with youth, especially being in remote Australia. Youth, like I knew that was the place that I wanted to be. And I ummed and ahed a lot over it, drove my sister crazy. We were working together at the same time. And, I was like, oh, I'm going to quit. And I was like, nah, actually, I'll stay. Back and forth. I think this must have gone on for like about a month. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I was scared to do it as well, because I was scared of what my boss was going to say, literally like a toxic relationship, scared to leave. And so I finally worked up the courage, and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm leaving. Put in my resignation. My boss was like, yep, okay. And I was like, oh my God, it was that easy. And then I think in her mind, she was like, you'll be back again. It's been 8 years, you coming and going, you'll be back. Not this time, baby, not this time. So I left. I gave like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I don't know, a few weeks notice. Left, moved back home. I just was looking for a specific job with a specific company, something that aligned with my values and my beliefs. And I waited and I waited, and my money was getting lower and lower. I lost 10K. I got scammed. I was like, my money was dwindling, and I just had to trust. And I trusted, found the job that perfectly aligned. I was like, yes, it was working. Everything was great. I was really enjoying life. Then I think I left in like April 2023. So this was about maybe 5 months, 5 months since I had gone through the breakup. Got back, another 5 months went by, and then I was just not in a good place again. And then I was like, I already made it like a massive decision in my life. And I was like, okay, now I've made this big decision and I'm back here. I feel like there's still something else. I just don't feel good. I'm not doing good. So I was like, I'm gonna join CrossFit. That is the scariest, grossest thing. Like, I was like, I'm not fit. And I was like, but I think this will be good for me to like do something that's really outside of my comfort zone. Ugh, just that thinking about that now, I'm like, ugh, gross. Um, Gross is in the stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing something uncomfortable, right? So joined CrossFit. That was great. Best decision ever, because then I met my mentor and friend, Kim, and we went for a beer. She told me to do social work, and finally I could hear it. Even though I had been told previously, I finally heard it. And a few weeks later, I enrolled, and the rest is history. I think when I look at it like that, and when I look at the big picture, when I look at the entirety of my life, I can see how all these little steps, all these little experiences, all these things really led to where I am now. And even though I have I don't know what I'm doing with this degree. I don't know where this degree is going to take me. But I feel like I am exactly where I am meant to be. To me, when I think of social work, I didn't even really know what social work was until I went for a beer with Kim, and she kind of explained it to me. And I was like, you know what, that sounds like something that I want to do. But even now, when I think about it, it's because of the upbringing that I have had as a child, because of my experiences within society. I'm curious to know why society is the way that it is. So it's not about some end goal of completing my degree. It's about the journey and the process and the learning. I have no idea what I'm going to do with my degree when I finish, but I think learning, and especially after being hidden from society in remote Australia for so long, now it's like, oh, tell me about this world out here. And, also, I love working with people. I enjoy working with people. And I don't want to become a social worker to save the world or fix things. I want to be able to have conversations with people. I want to be able to connect with people, share experiences. Maybe if there's something that I know that could help you, then sure. I honestly, I don't know where my degree is going to take me. I know what I'm interested in, and the things, I think I'm just going to continue to follow what lights me up, what interests me, and then see where it takes me. It really is about the journey. It's not about the end destination for me. It is, some people go into their degree and they're like, I just want to get it over and done with and then go out and work in the world. To me, that's not enjoyable. If I've got to do this for 4 years, I want to enjoy it. I want to try to be as present as I can every step of the way. I want to continuously show up and say yes to things, to expand, to grow. I want to be able to learn as much as I can, to be able to say, you know what, I don't know. To be able to say, I don't know, and to ask questions, to stay curious, and forever be a student, just to be a student of life. And I enjoy sharing my story, and I enjoy sharing things as well, because I don't know, I don't like to say to people, this is what you need to do, or these are the steps that you can take. This is what I'm doing. This is my life. This is my experience. This is where I was. This is where I am now. And if you can take something from that, great. If you don't, cool. Yeah. Yeah. But that's kind of, yeah. I think my life, to summarize all of this, I think my life has continuously led me to where I am now. And I think where I am now is, I I would like to say I don't really know where I'm going, but I am continuously choosing where I am going. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know where I'm going, but I continue to choose where I am going. I think that. I don't know if that makes sense. What is it? Two truths can exist at once? Something like that? I don't know. But that's how I feel. For sure. Anyway. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I feel exhausted after it's been like 26 minutes of talking by myself to a camera. So I feel exhausted now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time. And I will see you on my next podcast. Okay. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your week. I don't know what else I have to say other than, keep doing the best that you can do and keep showing up. Thank you. Bye.